Yaqoob recently wrote a very scathing and alarming piece on the state of higher education in Pakistan, in particular, the blanket sort of approval of new universities and their charters. So maybe you can respond a little bit to it.
I should say this is nothing new. As I wrote in my article, this has been going on for decades now. Ever since the HEC has been set up for the last 20 odd years, we have had a swathe of new higher education institutions being created. If you look at the private sector ones, some were so ridiculous that some of them didn't even have a place where they were going to be situated. Some were named, there was one university named Pak China Gwadar University, and it was supposed to be in Lahore and not in Gwadar. That's in the name, and Pak China, what does that mean?
Give us a sense of what kind of instruction and quality exists at the moment in the current private sector universities, barring a few good names.
What is happening in Pakistan is those places which should be colleges are called universities. They don't create any knowledge. And so what they do is they fake knowledge. They publish in fake journals.
Hello and welcome to New Wave Global. And I'm going to have a quick conversation with Dr. Yaqoob Bangash, who is a professor, a researcher, and a historian based out of Lahore, Pakistan. And Yaqoob recently wrote a very scathing and alarming piece on the state of higher education in Pakistan, in particular, the blanket sort of approval of new universities and their charters. So Yaqoob, welcome and thank you for the time. I just want to quickly go over with you. I mean, the Pakistan's Parliament has given countless new permissions to set up new universities, as if there was a dearth of private universities. What perhaps we lack is quality of higher education. So maybe you can respond a little bit to it. I mean, because you are very alarmed and so am I actually. But please let the viewers know about your argument as to why this is such a scandalous thing that the outgoing parliament has done in Pakistan.
Well, thank you, Raza, for this. I should say this is nothing new. As I wrote in my article, this has been going on for decades now. Ever since the HEC has been set up for the last 20 odd years, we have had a swathe of new higher education institutions being created. And whereas initially the HEC really focused on numbers, and I can understand when you are set up, you really want to give a fillip to higher education, you really want the numbers to increase, you really want to push more people in higher education. That sentiment is correct. But what is the point if you're going to create substandard universities and institutes? As you rightly mentioned, in the last couple of days, the National Assembly passed about 30-40 bills of new universities, not all in the private sector, some also in the public sector. And if you look at the private sector ones, some were so ridiculous that some of them didn't even have a place where they were going to be situated. Some were named, there was one university named Pak China Gwadar University, and it was supposed to be in Lahore and not in Gwadar. That's in the name, and Pak China, what does that mean? So such ridiculous titles, such ridiculous sort of points that they were being set up on. And it was only in the Senate that a number of these universities were actually prevented. But even then, a number of them did get their charters. But this is not just the National Assembly. Look at the Punjab Assembly. Look at other assemblies. The Punjab Assembly, I know for a fact, has passed in the last several years. And this is not just under one political government, under multiple political governments, that they have just given charters to universities without looking at the quality that they have. In the same way, a lot of public sector colleges have been raised at universities without thinking twice. And there's a big difference between what a college is and what a university is. And the HEC has completely disregarded that and upgraded these so that numbers may increase. And what that has done, Raza, and I think that's the real critical problem, that has led to hundreds and thousands and very soon millions of students who will have a degree which will not be worth the paper it's being printed on. And that is going to create a huge new crisis in Pakistan of not just unemployment, but resentment. Because what you are going to create is you have given hundreds and thousands of students a degree which is substandard. They have been half educated. They don't know what they have studied most of the time because the teachers aren't that good. The teaching environment isn't great. Their examinations are really bad. Some of them have just paid for their degrees. And this is going to create resentment with the population that is 65% under the age of 30. This is a time bomb that we are creating for ourselves by creating these half-educated people who have a degree but will have no job, will have no prospects. And actually, these are the people that go into extremism. So I think we have a real challenge at our hands, and it seems as if that whoever is in government is not stopping this. They are just
Yaqoob, perfect. This is really, perfect in the sense that, I just wanted you to identify the threats and the impending sort of doom that such policies have. But, in the past 2 decades, private universities, the number has quadrupled. Data shows that. Yaqoob, since you're an instructor and you've taught at many places, both public and private sector, just give us a sense of what kind of instruction and quality exists at the moment in the current private sector universities, barring a few good names. What is the general standard of instruction and the quality of education?
Well, Raza, I think not just private universities, we need to look at government universities too. And, as I said in my article, most people in Pakistan do not understand the difference between a college and a university. A college is where knowledge is taught. A university is where knowledge is created. Now, how many, we can literally count on one hand the number of universities in Pakistan where knowledge is created. Now, what is happening in Pakistan is those places which should be colleges are called universities. They don't create any knowledge. And so what they do is they fake knowledge. They publish in fake journals. They publish, I once went to, sadly, the oldest university of Pakistan, and I found that a husband and wife team were just publishing each other's work. And they were all being sort of, dumped at the back of their chair because no one cares about that. No one reads it. If this is the condition of the social sciences, I am alarmed at the condition of the natural and physical sciences and engineering. I'm sure you must have heard there was a professor at Quaid-e-Azam University, I think in the mathematics department, who has published the largest number of papers in the world in 1 year. Now, most people haven't even heard his name because he's not created any knowledge. So what you're doing is you are creating these fake, literally you are, in terms of climate change, you're actually destroying the climate through the printing of all these papers because, they should not be actually printed because most of them are useless. And what you're doing is a lot of these professors are then teaching all this useless material to their students. So rather than actually picking up the best, again, what a college does, a college instructor looks at the best books in the world on a particular subject and teaches this to their students because they don't create knowledge. They follow the best knowledge that's been created in the world. But because we have made all those colleges into universities, these professors don't pick the best things in the world, A, because they haven't read them, and 2, because they don't care they're important, and then teach whatever crap they are producing to these students, which means the students are actually more mediocre than a lot of these professors. So therefore, you are multiplying mediocrity. And these students then get PhDs on mediocre topics, on mediocre research, and then they go into all these universities. I keep getting shocked that where, public sector and private sector universities are, because in a place which doesn't even have enough high schools, there are several universities. And then these people who have been taught in a very mediocre way, some of them are actually really, I've met some of them are actually personally very intelligent, but they've not been given the tools because their professors, the people who taught them, did not know anything, did not know how to create knowledge, and therefore they passed on these substandard ideas to their students. And now they've become heads of departments, registrars, deans, and even vice chancellors. So imagine what kind of a university they are creating. And just one point on the private sector universities, all of them are all about money. So many of them, except of course, barring a few very good ones, a lot of them charge fees. I've even been to a private sector university where some students told me that they tell them that this is the cost of your 4-year education, pay this cost and get your degree at the end of the 4 years. Even that has happened. So what are you doing? You're literally, and again, higher education as in the good universities in the world, is considered a public good. If you privatize it and says whoever can teach whatever, again, as I pointed out in my article, you've got universities without PhDs and departments are running. Why is the department running that has no PhD or has one PhD? I know top universities, again, very sadly, old, revered institutions where they are running PhD programs where none of the persons who have done a PhD have published anything.
Right.
A good university. So I'm not even talking about these smaller provincial universities. I don't even want to know, because I think that'll just be sad. But these are considered the good ones. So on the public sector, you are being dishonest by raising colleges into universities. In the private sector, you're just doling out these charters, and it's alleged that millions of rupees are paid to members of parliament, both at the provincial and at the national level for these charters. And then you are really scamming. The real word is really scamming. This is a big scam. And there is no attempt whatsoever to prevent this from happening, to put a lid on this, to stop this. And 20 years is a long time. And, rather than doing all these things, the HEC is, from what I see, is micromanaging everything and trying to really thrust down its views on everything and everywhere. The HEC is a regulatory body. These are the kinds of things it needs to regulate. And sadly, I don't see that much of regulation of these grander schemes. I see micromanagement, which is actually preventing the development of higher.
So I think, Yaqoob, you've made an excellent point. I think the regulator, Higher Education Commission of Pakistan, obviously it's not doing its job. It needs to really fix its sort of house, put it in order. And the parliaments must stop these blanket and unregulated issuance of charters to business groups that want to make money in the name of higher education. Commodification of education is a global issue. Of course, Pakistan is no exception, but in Pakistan, where we are facing a crisis of education at all levels, this becomes really, really alarming. With that, thank you so much and hope to see you soon, viewers. Bye.